recently worked on something in the UAE. Can you please share with our audience here? Is it doable? What does it take to make this happen in the MENA?
Of course. Thank you, Ruba. We executed a project or several projects in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. Of course, the elements of the smart or the future cities, smart cities, as Stewart explained, there are many components or elements of smart cities. What we've done is some of those elements and not all of them. I will share with you those elements that we implemented in Abu Dhabi. The smart grid vision of the Emirate of Abu Dhabi was to replace all mechanical meters with smart meters. So the country had, or the Emirate had 300,000 mechanical meters and additional 100 digital meters at the time. So what we've done is replaced all 300,000 meters that were mechanical with digital meters. And this is in relation to the infrastructure. You would need an infrastructure to enable some of the components of smart cities, and that infrastructure is required to do so. After we replaced all 300,000, we ended up with 400,000 metering points that are digital meters but are not connected to anywhere. So the next phase of the project was to install and commission communication systems that connect to those digital meters and interrogate and communicate the data that is collected from these meters into a centralized system over a wireless connection. The Emirate had a Wi-Fi cloud owned by the utility, and we leveraged that cloud. We would connect through that wireless connection, and if it was not available, we would fall into a second route, which was enabled by GSM through a SIM card. We would transport all the data into a centralized server and integrate that all the way through the utility systems, all the way to the billing system, and generate the monthly bill for water and electricity and send it to the customer. After that, or another component of smart city was street lighting. What we have done is for all of the street lights of Abu Dhabi, we did not touch the existing infrastructure. We just added components to allow us to remotely monitor and control all of the street lights. Things like turn on, turn off the light, dim the lights to a certain level based on utilization of the street or traffic at the time. Of course, at night, like 3 a.m., there isn't much traffic, so we would dim the light to a very minimum level, not to jeopardize, of course, safety and security to citizens. So these kinds of projects we've implemented. In addition to that, we've done a leakage detection system on the water network. So we would monitor the sound of the leak, basically, Kharir al-Ma. We have devices installed in the network at certain locations throughout the network that would transmit data into a centralized server with some modeling on that data, estimate possibilities of proximity of a water leak in a specific location to dispatch crews to fix that leak. Another example was a pilot we've done on the sewage system where we would install sensors that sense the odor of the smell of sewage to improve the quality and detect leaks in the sewage system. With that system, we would also monitor the flow of the liquids in the sewage system as well as odor, transmit that into a centralized data server and manipulate and analyze the data to make some informed decisions by the operations people. So with these examples, there are many other elements of the smart cities but these were the examples that real case in the region with the size of those metering points. 400,000 is a massive number of points to manage the data and work with it. What are the benefits? At the end of the day, are we doing this just because it's fun? We enjoy technology, we love it, we have lots of money to do it. True, but at the end of the day, we need to have benefits to the utility as well as to the customers. The first of which was improved customer service to the customers. Once we implemented that smart metering system, processes took all the way, went from like 7 days turnaround time into 15 minutes in some cases. I'll give you an example of that. If you did not pay your bill for a long period of time, the way things were in that country, that they did not push you too much to pay your bill. So there was a lot of debt that the utility owed to consumers because they did not disconnect power when you did not pay. They decided to implement a solution that was part of the system. Is if you exceed a certain dollar amount, they would just disconnect electricity. And they, with using the system, remotely disconnected electricity. With the push of a button, you would disconnect power on that household. Of course, there are regulations against doing it. If there's a sick person in the house with certain conditions, you couldn't do it. But if legally it was okay to do it, the utility would just push a button to disconnect power. And consumers in the past, when power was disconnected, and if it was, they would need to go in to a customer service location, apply for reconnection, pay the fee, then the technician would need to go on site, reconnect it, come back. That took almost 3-4 days. With this new system, you would just call in, give them a credit card. They would return the power within 10 minutes of paying your bill. And that was great customer service improvement example, a realization of that benefit.
Any economic returns that you can share with us, Doctor?
Absolutely. The utility had owed, the consumers owed the utility close to about $50 million in monies that the citizens did not pay utility. Once we started implementing this solution, within 4 months, the utility recovered over $40 million of those monies. So that was a benefit to the utility in collecting the debt that was owed to the consumers. I can't go on and on. I know I have 5 minutes only, but there are challenges, lessons learned, and other benefits, but I do not want to take too much time.
Thank you so much. This is very interesting because it's a living example, so we will be coming back to you and hopefully with more questions from the audience. I would like now to go to Mr. Bashar. Tell us more about your initiative and how do you see ICT and technology intersect with the smart city concept?
Thank you. I think the topic of smart cities is very relevant now because of 2 reasons. So one is half of the world's population now live in cities, and there will be even more people coming to live in cities. So this is really where you have a small number of people, a large number of people in a small territory, which are becoming very vocal, and you need to make sure you have a sustainable, livable environment for them. That's the first driver. The second driver is technology today allows you to have a smart experience in cities, because these cities are instrumented, which means we have sensors everywhere. We heard a number of good examples. We have people with mobile phones everywhere. We have so much data available for us to transform this city into an intelligent or smart city. We have the data, we have the connectivity to link the data together, and we have the intelligence around it to make the city more livable and smart. So the people in the city, plus the big shift that we're seeing in technology around mobility, big data, analytics, and cloud are enabling cities today to transform themselves into smart cities. IBM had about 10,000 engagements with cities around the world on these kind of transformational projects. Let me give you an example. We're talking to one of the big cities about a project that we call City in Motion. We're looking at all the data available to the telco providers in these cities. And this kind of data gives us a lot of information about what's happening in the city, what happened in the past, but even more importantly, what is going to happen in these places. Today, the telcos in any city like Amman, for example, can tell you what the traffic situation looks like anywhere in Amman real time. They can tell you how many people are on the King Abdullah Street and in which direction they're going and what's the speed that they're moving at. Because people are moving from one cell to the other, they can give you pretty accurate situation and information about that. This kind of data and information can be given to entrepreneurs, that can be given to startups to provide apps or solutions that give people information so that they can make a decision on when they want to go somewhere and how they want to get there quickest, fastest, and best. This kind of data is also available for commercial usage. So for example, in malls, people are interested in understanding who are the people coming into the mall at any time, what kind of clientele is coming to the mall, and how can we adjust our advertisements for that. You can start to make decisions as to where you want to be, at which point in time, when you want to go to which organization or which agency, and deliver the right solution based on the data that you have, which is real-time data. So smart cities is really about using big data to solve three issues. The first issue is everything to do with infrastructure. We heard the story about traffic, we heard the story about meters, energy, water, and so on. The second one is all about government and governing. It's about linking the data between the different agencies in order to provide safety and security, fast response systems, policies, enablement of having a single view of citizens and organizations. So when somebody goes to one agency or department, they know about him and they understand what kind of services he's looking for, and that can all electronically be integrated and handled together. That makes it a smart government and a smart experience in living in that place. The third element of that is everything to do with the people and the humans who live in this city. We spoke about smarter healthcare, we spoke about smarter education, we spoke about smarter care, we spoke about smarter safety, and everything to do with engaging these citizens who are the customers of this city. Giving this experience to companies, individuals, and people of a smart city enables you to attract more business, makes the city more livable, and allows business to flourish. This is why I would say data is the next natural resource. And it's the kind of resource in which the more you refine it, the more you analyze it, the more you segment it, the more valuable it becomes. And this is the kind of asset that will be used by your IT sector to build valuable applications that add value to businesses and citizens in these cities, but also attract businesses, attract investment into this country. So this is really our next natural resource. What hydrocarbons and electricity was for the previous century is what data and smart analytics is for the business and the cities moving forward.
Thank you very much. This is very inspiring and interesting. And I would like also now to raise another question. So all of these smart city solutions sound like infrastructure intensive, sound like they need lots of capital and money and operation costs and capex and so on. Where would the money come from? How can municipalities transform cities into smart cities? And maybe I can raise this to maybe start with Stuart and then go back to you, Mr. Bashar and others. If you can pass the mic, please.
So that's a great question. So all of it is going to cost money, and so where's the money going to come from? Well, I have Scottish blood in my veins, and so I'm very frugal, which made me a good asset manager for the utilities I worked for. I'd say make it self-funding. So not all of it that we're talking about can be self-funding, but a lot of it can. An example we were talking about earlier today, one of the, there's a modest-sized city in Canada that I've been working with, who was planning to spend $40 to $50 million Canadian to replace their streetlight infrastructure with LEDs to save energy. And through looking at the options, we helped them identify the potential for somebody else to come in and make that investment, to bring in the streetlight conversion, and much like you spoke about, a wireless network that came with it. And so somebody else said, look, based on the energy efficiency savings and your ability to put solar panels on the poles and generate, we're willing to come in and make the investment. It looks like a 6-year payback to us. We'll make the investment. You pay us through the savings. We'll take the revenue off of the solar panels that you add to the system. You get the use of the communications network. It has you can add security cameras on. You can add traffic cameras on. And so, not only did they get somebody else to put forward the capital, there's actually a residual revenue stream that comes to them on an annual basis during that 6-year period. And so they wound up saving the $40-50 million that they were planning to spend, and can put it toward other parts of the infrastructure that may not be able to support it. The city I live in, Walnut Creek, California, has done something similar with its parking meters. They're all, it's a very, very interesting situation. They're all wirelessly connected. If you park in Walnut Creek and don't pay the meter, you can pay by phone, you can pay with your credit card, or you can put coins in it. Within 5 minutes of parking at that meter, there will be an enforcement person at that car to write you a ticket. Now, the city's then turned around and sold the data, much as my colleague was talking about. And so there are apps now that you can use in places like San Francisco and Walnut Creek to find open parking spaces. And so there's lots of ways to monetize the different parts of the investment that you're looking at making. And so, my strong recommendation as we go forward is to start looking at each of the pieces and finding the ways to monetize them or make them self-funding.
Thank you so much, and I would like now to open the floor for questions from the audience. Please, sir, introduce yourself and ask your question.
Thank you for organizer, and thank you for all speakers, and Roba for moderating this roundtable. My name is Wael Wahbe from Jordan Environmental Society and other society take care for environmental and renewable energy. When the speakers said everything about the smart cities, I think everybody here imagined like we are in the Walt Disney fiction film. I think this is amazing, wonderful imagination, but as we know, this is like a weapon, have positive reflections and negative reflections. We should take the negative reflections on our life after start building smart cities, like the social life, because we are a human being. This external life is very important to be still in life. What is the reflection or the negative reflection of smart city? And this is for all. Thank you.
So you would like to learn more about the negative sides that smart cities might have on the social,
for social and human living here.
Great point. I may not talk about social, but something that may be considered social or not. It's about jobs. There was great fear that after automating this meter reading system, that all of the meter readers would lose their jobs because we no longer need readers to roam around the city and collect these readings and send them back. What it turned out that these meter readers were offered the opportunity to upgrade their skills to operate this automated meter reading system because yes, it is smart, it is automated, but it would require manpower to run the system and operate it, but with a different skill. So that was a great opportunity to those readers to improve their skills to adapt to this new smart environment that improved their lives and with higher pay and improved their social life. I'm not sure if that's what you were referring to, but that's one example that I can share with social impact that may be viewed as negative, but in reality, we can turn that as positive.
And on the Walt Disney one, maybe Hazem would like to reflect a little bit as well. The relationship.
But I think cities that are not smart have a negative social, when we talk about smart cities, by definition, are cities that have efficient transportation systems, that have good public transportation systems, and this is where people meet and interact. I think in cities that do not have such systems, people are secluded and in their cars and in their suburbs, and so on the contrary, I think smart cities are better, across the board, even socially.
I think the human aspect of a smart city is extremely important. So it's not only infrastructure, it's not only government, but it's really about people. And we spoke about healthcare, we spoke about education, we spoke about all of that. Today, there are tools that allow you to analyze the sentiment in the city or in parts of the city. People analyze tweets, Facebook, Instagram, and they can give you a pretty accurate view of what are the topics that are of interest to a certain city or a certain part of a city, and also give you a sentiment on that, sentiment index. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it what kind of thing? So, of course, all of that comes into the bigger picture of an integrated, interconnected environment where people communicate with each other, with business, and with the government.
I have a question here.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Tarek from DHL. I'm thinking like a mega project like smart city. I'm sure there's a forecasting or planning to convert normal city to smart city. Any idea about this? What's the forecasting? What's the budget we are talking about?
Stuart, would you like to, or Hazem? Yes?
I think it's important to think about, this not as one major, investment. In Jordan especially, we tend to focus on the big strategic projects. And when I think of transportation in Amman, we all know about the bus rapid transit project. We've heard about rail projects. And these projects are all good and important, and they actually force us to use technology more. You can operate buses and services without technology. What you need tech-based solutions to operate these systems. But we also need to look at short-term, low-hanging fruit that can help us address some challenges and make our cities smarter. In Amman today, we have large amounts of data. As Bashar was talking about data as well. We have real-time traffic counters in Amman. We have a first-class traffic control center where all traffic lights, to which all traffic lights are connected to in Amman. We have public transport maps actually, but all of these data are being used for monitoring and enforcement purposes and not to provide information for the end user. So and I call them low-hanging fruit because we only need to go that last mile. We have the data available, but we need to make them available. We need to make use of them and provide them in a way that the end user can consume.
And if I may, it really depends on which aspect of the smart cities you're looking at. So there is no one solution that fits all. So are you handling energy efficiency for buildings? Are you working on smart grids? Are you, doing street lighting? So it's really, as Hazem said, it's different layers, different phases, and maybe Stuart can also.
Yeah, so if you think about the numbers that I've seen suggest that globally we'll spend $1.5 trillion, or the market will be $1.5 trillion by 2020. So clearly there's a lot of money that's going to have to come from somewhere. And if we think that the cities have to budget all of that themselves, I think we make a big mistake. One of the things that I think is important is cities, the municipalities, private industry, government, all to be sort of thinking about where do we want this city to be? What's the vision? What's the strategy? Because where I've seen it work well, the private companies begin making investments that align with the needs of the cities. One of the utilities that I worked for in California, when we were bringing fiber optic cable to our own facilities for our own communication, we would bring extra capacity and donate it to the cities for their use in schools and those sorts of things. So if there's a common view of the vision, a lot of the investment can either be self-funding or it can be made in partnership between the people involved. A lot of my experience is that a lot of the businesses that live in those communities are willing to make an investment that's larger than their own need for the benefit of the city as well. And so the important thing is to understand what the vision and the goal is, and then take it in pieces. If you try to swallow it all at once, you'll never make it.
And I'd like also here to maybe invite Dr. Saeed to maybe share with us what he thinks about the phases for implementation, like how can we go about it?
Yeah, so actually this is a good point, and I'll tell you, we started this project 5 years ago to bring electric cars to Jordan and the electric car charging network. And in the US and Europe, I was part of a program that President Obama put, that they put billions of dollars to build the infrastructure, because that's what people think, the government has to put the infrastructure. And actually, just to tell you that actually that was a failed model, because what happened is they built the infrastructure, but people did not buy electric cars. So what I would caution is that sometimes people think of it that the government has to do everything, and people let the planners do planning and then follow them and just bring the money and everything will be hunky-dory. It doesn't work that way. What we discovered, for example, in the EV business, consumers in Jordan, for example, if you're going to ask them to buy electric cars, why would I do that? Very simple. And in the US, energy efficiency works, but the cost savings and return investment takes you years to recover between conventional cars and a regular car. It's not going to work. So you build the whole infrastructure, nobody will buy it, and you're going to go out of business. And that's what happens to companies in the US and in Europe. So the approach we took with the government, which took us 5 years, we're still working on it, no government funding yet. But the approach we took is say, okay, I have family here in Jordan. My brother, actually, he's a business guy. He will never drive a small car. He likes a Mercedes. But I found that every day he drives 50 to 100 kilometers. That costs him about 10 to 15 dinars. Everybody feels it. So what if I tell him, look, I'm going to bring you this cool car, which some of you who saw us yesterday, there are a lot of cool cars, all the technology, ICT, GPS, Bluetooth. And by the way, it's going to cost you every day only 2 dinars. I got his attention. So then I said, I'll send you one, try it. That was my guinea pig in Jordan. And when my brother said, you know what, screw that, I'm going to sell the Mercedes, give me this car, I felt like, there's something here. Because what we did with the government said, look, if you implement a solar charging network, which means we're going to put megawatts, tens of megawatts of solar charging station to offset the use of electric cars, which means totally zero emission. You as a consumer, when you import the car, if you part of that or you install solar system, you will get free customs, which in Jordan is a big pain. That doesn't exist, by the way, in other countries because they don't pay custom fees. But in Jordan, combination fuel savings with customs, you drive a brand new car, and I, as a private sector, build that infrastructure and you sign up with me. By the way, we stole this from the telecom. Those of you who are old enough remember that 20 years ago, there were no cell phones in Jordan. When you buy it, it was 1,000 dinars and you pay 30 cents. Today, it all was built with the infrastructure from private investment, and they're doing very well. You can ask the CEOs about their revenue. So it can work, but you have to do it with some risk, with some investment. It takes time, and you have to listen to the market. And the last thing I would warn, do not let the government lead everything. The government is good in some things, but some things, don't let them touch it. Just keep them out of it and let the private sector handle it.
And thank you. And I would like also to say that maybe starting with some strategic pilots like the King Hussein Business Park, and JCP is trying to help them convert into a smart campus, might be a good way of showing case and demonstrating what would work in Jordan and what didn't. So we're looking forward to having some concrete results on this. I have a question over there, please. How much time do I have more?
We should be wrapping it up.
Okay, last question.
My name is Amir Ashhade. I have a question to the general panelist. In order to have a smart city, I'm assuming we need a nice, clean, constant flow of energy. To the best of my understanding, we have around 330 days of direct sunlight in Jordan, which is a beautiful means for clean energy, solar energy. And I think around 97% of our energy is imported. I'm wondering, why aren't we tapping into solar energy? And I'm probably saying that we're going to be signing a contract very soon with our neighbors in Israel for some energy. Am I missing something?
Yes, please do.
So thank you for the question. I spent 25 years of my life working renewable energy. So it's in my heart, it's passionate, and then all that. But the reality is, what the premise of your discussion is that Jordan can have the vast majority of its power provided by solar. And that is not true. I would love that to see that. But I'll tell you right now, electricity is messy. You know, when you go home, you want to turn the electricity, and Stuart will tell you that. You don't care what's coming. You want the electricity to go on, and you want to pay for it cheap. Renewable energy, it's intermittent. It's not continuous, which means you have issues of storage, you have issue of fluctuation, and you cannot have a base system that is robust, sustainable with only renewable. Whether you like it or not, the vast majority of your base load has to be provided by a conventional source. Now, whether that source is natural gas, whether it's from Israel, anywhere, or whether it's nuclear, if it works for you, or if it's from whatever it is, you have to have that stable power that you can robustly enough rely on it. Renewable, even in the best countries, in the US we're having trouble right now because renewable energy, and Germany, because renewable energy now is about 15-20% of the load, they're having all kind of problems, power outages, power peaks, flickering. So I would caution, I am as passionate about renewable energy as anybody here. I am from Jordan. I started my life and my career working solar energy here. There's a huge difference between having a massive infrastructure with energy versus have your renewable energy contribution, which can be increased. But it takes long time. It's not just investment. It's not just the government will. And by the way, there's no conspiracy. It's not the oil companies or natural gas or this or that. The nature of utility business is messy. You cannot turn a switch like IT, put cell phone network in 2 years. And I think Stuart probably, you can elaborate. It's messy, it takes time. Changing it takes decades, not a year or two. So although it's a nice dream to think that you can convert Jordan into renewable, there's no way technically you can do that. And I'll let Stuart comment on that.
I think you're right. What I would say, so 30 years in the utility industry, my advice would be diversity of resources. If you put all your eggs in one basket, you're going to have a problem, whether it's wind, whether it's solar, whether it's nuclear. There is no benign source. So I look around Jordan, I think you could ramp up solar production pretty significantly, and that's something I would be looking at. But you need to take lessons from states like California. I think 25% of all rooftop solar in the United States is in California. We have a problem called the duck curve. we have so much solar production in the middle of the day that it goes down really low, the load that we have to produce from the generators. And then as the sun goes down, it takes off. And it goes up, the load increases so fast that the conventional generators can't keep up. And so we risk stability of the entire western part of North America because we didn't think about it as we were adding a lot of solar in. So you should add a lot more, but I think diversity of resources and good planning, yeah, it is messy. And so, storage is good. I think you have great opportunities for solar combined with storage. You do have great solar potential, great solar resources. If we can start driving the cost of storage down significantly, I think Jordan could benefit from that greatly.
And due to time constraints, I can meet you after the session and brief you about how Jordan is really leading the renewable energy regulatory aspects in the MENA region. We are already taking steps forward, not fast enough maybe, but there are things that are taking place, so I can also speak to you afterwards. I would like to conclude by some concluding remarks, like focusing on what can we do now, where shall we start from? Bashar, would you like to? Yes.
Thank you. I think the word smarter or smart is really the key here. How can we use technology to solve our problems? We will not be able to rebuild the cities from scratch. These are cities that have been built over tens of years and hundreds of years. It is really about using technology to solve our issues. And this is why today, with the big data story, with the sensors everywhere, with the integrated environment, you can start tapping into these sources and using technology to solve your problems. Connecting people without having them to travel from one place to the other, having a better and more efficient and effective infrastructure, integrating government services so you have one view of the citizen and you're able to support them, integrating different agencies for rapid security responses, and then of course that all integrated with everything to do with the lifestyle of people living in these cities, from health to education to social care and all that stuff. That's using technology to be smarter about how we want to solve our problems.
I think on the transportation side, we've talked about how we can utilize data to create better and smarter transportation systems. But I think all of this requires institutional capacity at the government level, and it requires political will and political champions. And I think because we're lacking or a bit challenged on both of these in Jordan at least, we should. I mean, this is where I think the role of startups and entrepreneurs, and I think Bashar mentioned this before, the role of startups comes in. And I mean, we have initiatives like Umran, a funding vehicle for startups aimed at using technology to improve urban life, launched by Oasis 500 and the Greater Amman Municipality and the New Cities Foundation. So with by providing the access to the right data to these startups, I think we can do wonders, the right access to the data and the funding vehicle as well. And also in community organizations, there's a new community organization in Jordan called Ma'an Nasl that's exerting pressure on government to improve public transport, but the basic aspect of that is introducing technology and information technology-related elements into the public transport system in Amman.
Thank you. Very quick, please.
So it's going to take a long time to complete the vision of a smart city. So my advice would be find the self-funding opportunities that are available now and just do it. Start. You don't need too many more panel discussions. You don't need too many more discussions with the government. There's lots of things that you can do now that will take you forward. So why wait? Just do it.
Why wait? Dr. Hussein?
30 seconds. Yeah. Smart cities require smart people to build them. And I know Jordan has the key ingredient to that, which is brain power. I do know Jordan has a lot of talented ICT people to enable smart equipment to enable smart cities. And this is a key ingredient to what we need to do, is utilize and train and go after our talent here, utilize that to build smart cities. Do it in stages.
Dr. Saeed, any concluding remarks from your end?
I had the pleasure of being educated in Jordan. I reflected Hussein, so I'm going to tell you, nobody's going to solve the problem. Don't wait for the government. انتوا الشباب اللي هون شمر عن دراعك. There's huge opportunities when there's problems. Take advantage of it and solve it. The government is not going to come in and solve all your problems, but that's when you have the opportunity. But whether you like it or not, actually Jordan is much better than a lot of places. I am in Chicago. If you think dealing with the government of Jordan is tough, try to deal with Exelon, for God's sake. I mean, you're like you're banging your head. So Jordan problems are not unique. Utility is all over the world, are the worst. They're dinosaurs. They don't like to change. Someone told me from utility, only tollway booths like change. Nobody else does it. So there's not unique problems. Jordan's doing very well. And I think I'm very optimistic that with the help of the people, it will work. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our panelists. And thank you very much for your patience.
Ruba, thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you very much.